Mark always said life was a romantic comedy, minus the romance and the comedy. His apartment looked like a crime scene where optimism went to die. Empty takeout boxes leaned against a monitor that glowed with rejection emails. Dating apps had turned into digital ghost towns where bots catfished him for crypto. Even his cat had left 2 months ago to find herself. Friday night found him slumped at the only bar that still let him run a tab. The neon sign flickered like it pitied him. "You know what's wrong with dating apps," he muttered to the bartender, a bored woman polishing a glass with existential despair. "Everyone says they want honesty. But when I write, chronically broke, emotionally stable-ish, they stop replying." She raised an eyebrow. "Maybe try leading with stable-ish." Mark smirked, swirling his drink. "I just want someone wild about me. A real animal in bed. Someone who'll actually pounce, not ghost." He said it loud enough that even the jukebox paused in judgment. The bartender sighed. "Careful what you wish for. The universe's got a twisted sense of humor." Mark grinned, taking it as a dare. He tore a napkin, scribbled "I wish for a girlfriend who's wild about me" in drunk cursive, and, in a burst of idiotic inspiration, held it over the candle by the bar. "Manifestation," he declared, nearly burning his sleeve. "Manifest some common sense," she muttered. Mark left the bar staggering through the midnight rain, muttering philosophical truths like, "Love's just Wi-Fi for the soul, and I've got no signal." His sneakers squelched through puddles as he unlocked his apartment door, tossed his keys at the wall, and collapsed on the couch. He squinted at the ceiling. "Just once," he mumbled. "Someone who won't ghost me, or unsubscribe from my existence." Then he passed out midwish, shoes still on, face buried in a cushion that smelled faintly of ramen and failure. The next morning, an aggressive pounding rattled the door. He groaned, thinking it was the landlord or Amazon delivering more disappointment. Then a voice, a low, velvety growl, cut through the hangover fog. "Mate identified. Open door." Mark blinked. That was new. He stumbled upright, tripping over a pile of laundry, his head pounding like regret with a baseline. "Who is it?" "Your wish fulfillment," the voice purred. He unlocked the door, and froze. There, framed in sunlight like a fantasy gone rogue, stood a 7-foot-tall woman, or at least, something that identified as one. Tawny skin, feline eyes that shimmered gold, and muscles that could bench press regret itself. She wore a miniskirt, leather boots, and an expression that said she could both kiss and kill him in the same breath. Mark blinked again, certain he was still drunk. Did I die? Is this the weird part of heaven where therapy bills don't exist? She tilted her head. "I am Lura of the Feral Accord. You summoned me with your wish." He squinted. "I what?" She raised a clawed finger, producing a glowing scroll that appeared mid-air. "The wish contract of passionate fulfillment. Your statement, 'I wish for a girlfriend who's wild about me,' was received by the cosmic court of manifestation. I am here to fulfill the clause." Mark stared at her boots. "You came through a court." She sniffed. "The paperwork was dreadful. But yes. I am your intended mate. We begin evaluation immediately." "Evaluation," he croaked. "Mating compatibility, emotional bonding, furniture durability." "Furniture, wait, what?" Her tail swished with predatory amusement. "Do you accept the terms?" Mark's brain, fried from cheap whiskey and confusion, tried to reboot. I'm not sure I'm ready for a relationship right now. Or an interdimensional lawsuit." She stepped closer, her scent a mix of wilderness and danger. Consent registered as hesitant curiosity. "Acceptable." He backed into his couch, which groaned under the combined weight of disbelief and destiny. "Look, maybe we start with coffee? Small talk? Not, whatever this is." Her eyes narrowed. "You think this is small?" He swallowed hard. Bad phrasing. For a tense second, the only sound was the hum of the fridge and Mark's sanity leaving the chat. Then Laura sighed. "You look unfit for coupling. Are all males in this world this soft?" He glanced at his reflection in the TV, Hair a mess, shirt wrinkled, confidence DOA. Yeah, pretty much. She made a noise halfway between a growl and a laugh. I like soft. It challenges my instincts. He blinked. That was almost flattering. I have been trained in compliments. Limited success. Mark rubbed his temples. Okay. Let's assume I'm not hallucinating. You're Beastwoman. In heels. Who came because of a drunk wish. Yes. And you want to evaluate mating compatibility. Correct. He sighed. You don't happen to come with a return policy, do you? Her ears twitched. What is a return? He shook his head. Never mind. Loa circled his living room like a predator inspecting a new den. Her tail brushed over the dusty bookshelf, knocking down a stack of unpaid bills. Primitive but cozy. You live alone. He hesitated. Technically, yes. Though loneliness and I have joint custody of this place. Her golden eyes softened slightly. Loneliness is a dangerous creature. It devours without teeth. He blinked. That's unexpectedly poetic. She tilted her head, confused by his tone. Was that good? It was better than my last 3 Tinder dates. She considered this, tail flicking. Then we are compatible. Whoa, hold on. Compatibility's a strong word for 2 people who haven't even argued about pizza toppings yet. Her expression brightened. I like meat. Yeah, I figured. He flopped back onto the couch, laughing in disbelief. Okay, universe. You win. I asked for a wild girlfriend, and you sent me Catwoman with commitment issues. Laura crouched beside him, her eyes curious. You do not appear afraid. Oh, I'm terrified, he admitted. But fear's been third-wheeling my love life for years. Her ears perked. Then perhaps you're stronger than you seem. Mark blinked, caught off guard. Somewhere between terror and awe, a strange calm settled over him. You know, he muttered, you're not what I wished for, but you might be exactly what I deserve. She grinned, teeth sharp as humor. Then the wish was accurate. And before he could respond, she leaned close enough for him to see his reflection in her eyes, half fear, half fascination. Outside, a neighbor shouted, "Keep it down in there." Mark sighed. Yeah, he muttered, this is definitely real. He wasn't sure what scared him more, that she might disappear, or that she wouldn't. Mark woke to the sound of purring that could double as an earthquake. The entire couch trembled beneath a massive, furred weight. His foggy brain caught up to the situation one horrifying detail at a time, tail flicking, claws tapping, and something sniffing his hair. Laura was sprawled across his couch like it was her throne. Her golden eyes blinked open lazily. You slept poorly. Your breathing pattern was erratic. Is that normal for humans or just you? Mark groaned. Pretty standard for guys who wake up next to apex predators. He sat up, rubbing his eyes. You stayed. You summoned, she corrected, stretching like a cat and making his couch groan in protest. Until contract completion, I remain. She tilted her head. Do humans require constant reminders of their actions? Your memory seems fragile. Only when hungover, he muttered. Or haunted. Her nostrils flared. You are emitting fear pheromones. Intriguing. Yeah, that's called coffee withdrawal. He stumbled to the kitchen, praying this was still a dream. Laura followed, fascinated by everything. She prodded the toaster with one claw, growled at the blender when it whirred, and jumped 3 feet in the air when the coffee maker gurgled. This dwelling hums with spirits. Those spirits are caffeine and bad wiring, Mark said, handing her a mug. She sniffed it suspiciously, then gulped it all at once. Steam rolled out her nose like a dragon. Hot. No kidding. Her tail lashed. You humans weaponize your beverages. Only on Mondays. Laura inspected his refrigerator next, opening the door and staring in awe. You keep prey frozen. You must be a god among your kind. I'm more like a broke demigod of leftovers, he he said. She picked up a slice of pizza, sniffed it, and devoured it whole, box included. Crunchy prey, she declared with satisfaction. That was cardboard, he said. She frowned. Your diet is confusing. So is yours, he muttered, staring at his ruined breakfast. She moved around his apartment with the curiosity of a toddler and the grace of a jungle cat. Every object fascinated her. She poked his laptop. This shiny box traps souls. It traps my deadlines. She frowned. It hums of despair. You are imprisoned by glowing rectangles. You're not wrong. Then came the topic of clothing. Laura glanced down at her own outfit, a black miniskirt and heels that looked stolen from a nightclub clearance sale, and then at him. Your garments hide your body. Are you ashamed? I'm underdressed for reality, not shame, he replied. In my world, showing one's scars is a sign of strength. Here it's called an HR violation. She didn't understand but nodded as if he'd imparted wisdom. Your species communicates strangely. You lie with smiles, touch without claws, and flirt with vibrations in the air. That's texting. She blinked. You mate through text. Not exactly. We talk. Then ignore. Then overthink. Then repeat. Her confusion deepened. And this leads to offspring. Not unless autocorrect gets involved. She frowned, considering this for a long moment. Your kind's rituals are inefficient, yet oddly persistent. Fascinating. Mark leaned against the counter, watching her. You're judging my entire species based on one failed writer with debt and insomnia. Yes, she said simply. Your sample size is sufficient. He chuckled despite himself. There was something disarmingly honest about her. She didn't pretend to understand him, she just observed. He'd never had that before. Most women ghosted after the second date, but Laura looked like she could track ghosts down and interrogate them. Still, the reality of her presence was insane. Okay, he said, pacing. Let's assume I accept this wish fulfillment thing. What's the plan? You hang out here forever? We Netflix until I die of shock. She frowned. You use strange words. What is a Netflix? A way humans pretend to connect emotionally while ignoring each other for 6 hours. Ah, she said, nodding solemnly. Foreplay. He choked on his coffee. That's one way to describe it. Laura walked to the window, gazing at the skyline. Your world is loud and restless. It fights itself even in silence. Yet you survive. That is rare. Mark looked at her reflection in the glass, alien, regal, and somehow out of place among concrete and smog. Surviving's our default setting. Thriving's optional. She turned to face him. You mock your own endurance. Why? It's cheaper than therapy. Her tail flicked thoughtfully. In my realm, we honor what we overcome. You bury it under laughter. That's the human way. She studied him quietly. Perhaps that is why I was sent here, to learn this strange courage you disguise as humor. He smirked. Trust me, half my courage is caffeine and denial. Denial is a strong elixir, she said. There was a beat of silence before she sniffed the air again. You smell of uncertainty and stale bread. Thanks, I'll add that to my dating profile. Laura approached him, her steps silent despite the heels. You are afraid of me, she said softly. Yet you speak. That makes you interesting. I'm a writer, he replied. I talk to terrifying things all the time. Usually deadlines. Her lips curled into a grin, revealing sharp teeth that somehow made him nervous and fascinated at once. You jest even when preyed upon. Admirable. Preyed upon? You mean courted, right? In my tongue, same word. He blinked. Figures. She crouched beside him again, studying his face. Your eyes avoid mine, yet your pulse betrays interest. You are conflicted. I'm human. We run on conflict and caffeine. She seemed to consider this deeply, then patted his shoulder, carefully, like she might crush it by accident. Then we are compatible enough for further study. He sighed. You mean conversation, right? You're not going to start, I don't know, gnawing on the furniture. Her expression was serious. Not unless it displeases me. He pointed at the couch. It already displeases you, doesn't it? It offends my spine, she admitted. Your world is full of weak furniture. Welcome to IKEA. Her tail flicked again, this time in amusement. You adapt through mockery. A strange but effective defense. It's our only superpower, he said. Laura gave a low purr, satisfied. Then perhaps humans are not prey after all. Glad you're catching on, he said, half smiling. Still, she added thoughtfully, you remain soft. I like that. It makes the world seem less sharp. He blinked. That might be the nicest backhanded compliment I've ever gotten. She tilted her head, ears twitching. You take insult as affection. You confuse me further. Yeah, he said. That's called dating. Loa laughed, a throaty, rolling sound that made the room vibrate. You are odd, Mark of Earth. Perhaps you will make a fine mate after all. Mark groaned. Let's not rush labels. Maybe we start with roommates. She nodded. Very well. Temporary cohabitation until further evaluation. He gave a long, exhausted sigh. Story of my life. Then the story just improved, she purred, curling up on the couch again. Within seconds, she was asleep, snoring like an idling motorcycle. Mark stood there, coffee in hand, watching the Beastwoman nap in his living room like she belonged there. His brain wanted to panic, but his heart, well, his heart was laughing. For the first time in years, he wasn't alone. He looked up at the ceiling. All right, universe, he muttered. You win again. Next time, I'm wishing for a tax refund. You said. Mark had survived hangovers, heartbreaks, and tax season, but nothing prepared him for living with a 7-foot apex flirt. The neighbors were already suspicious. The noise complaints started after the second training session, which involved Laura practicing territorial purring at decibel levels usually reserved for rocket launches. The landlord texted him, "Keep the jungle quiet, or I raise rent." Mark replied, "Can't promise anything. Nature's loud." Laura didn't understand discretion. When the mailman came, she sniffed him like he was a courier of destiny. When Mark tried explaining boundaries, she misheard it as bonding. When she discovered Netflix, she asked if it was a mating ritual. Sort of, Mark said, trying to reclaim the remote. She perched next to him, tail coiled around his leg. Then proceed, she purred. The show started, some slow-burn romance, and she tilted her head. Why do humans delay coupling for 8 episodes? Inefficient. That's called character development. Ah, she said. Foreplay with dialogue. The next day, Mark's apartment looked like a wildlife documentary filmed inside a tornado. She'd shredded a throw pillow because it insulted her posture. His Roomba was in critical condition. She'd tried to hunt it. It mocked me, she explained. It runs but never bleeds. His phone buzzed again, neighbor text. Everything okay in there? Sounds like you're either renovating or filming something I shouldn't be hearing. Mark typed back, both. At this point, he'd given up trying to rationalize his life. He made breakfast, she called it morning prey. She licked the butter knife once and said, "This metal tongue has no flavor." When he tried to get her to use utensils, she insisted on hunting her pancakes. Watching her stalk a plate was both terrifying and oddly charming. "You humans overcook everything," she complained. "Where's the thrill? It's brunch, not battle. Your rituals blur the line." He snorted. "Welcome to civilization." Later, she decided she needed to experience humanity firsthand. Mark begged her not to, but Laura had the curiosity of a toddler and the confidence of a tank. She borrowed his hoodie, ripped the sleeves off immediately, and strode outside. Within 5 minutes, Mark got a text from the store clerk downstairs. Bro, your cosplay girlfriend just scared off 2 customers and bought 5 cans of tuna with cash and intimidation. When she returned, she carried groceries like trophies. Your people are delightful. They fear me, yet they serve me. Efficient. That's capitalism, he said. We've been doing it for centuries. She handed him a bag. This was free. That's stealing. Same thing, she said seriously. Despite the chaos, something weird happened. They started talking, not just trading sarcasm but talking. She asked why humans needed art, why they stared at glowing screens instead of the stars. He said, because stars don't pay rent. She nodded solemnly, like he'd said something profound. She'd sit on the balcony at night, watching the city lights like constellations made by anxious gods. You live in boxes stacked upon boxes. You cage yourselves. Yeah, Mark said, joining her. It's called having neighbors. And yet, she said, looking at him, you laugh. Even while trapped. Because crying ruins the carpet. Her smile was small but real. Humans. Fragile but unbroken. Moments like that made him forget she once threatened his microwave. Beneath the claws and chaos, there was curiosity, tenderness even. She started to mimic his habits, using a mug, quoting sarcasm badly, even trying to write her own manifestations on napkins. One read, I wish for a prey that hugs back. He didn't know whether to laugh or panic. The peace didn't last long. The landlord finally visited, furious about the animal noises. Laura opened the door before Mark could stop her. Greetings, territory manager, she said with regal calm. Do you wish to challenge my mate's dominance? The landlord froze. Mark coughed. We'll keep it down. The man backed away so fast he left a shoe behind. Laura smirked. He yields. Congratulations, Mark said. You just scared away my security deposit. When she wasn't intimidating the locals, she was trying to understand human mating hierarchy. She discovered social media. That was a disaster. Her first post, my human male is weak but loyal. Acceptable breeding stock. Mark begged her to delete it. She refused. Why hide truth? Because truth doesn't trend well, he said. That night, she caught him staring at his old photos, ones with X's, laughter, normalcy. You mourn, she said. I reminisce, he corrected. Same wound, different dressing. He sighed. You're surprisingly philosophical for someone who hisses at toasters. I adapt, she said simply. You taught me sarcasm. I'm unstoppable now. Mark couldn't help it, he laughed until his stomach hurt. Laura looked proud, as if she'd discovered humor through conquest. That sound, she said softly, it pleases me. Laughter? Yes. It's the only noise that doesn't sound like prey dying. High praise. For a second, the apartment went quiet except for the hum of city life outside. Mark realized something he didn't want to admit out loud. He wasn't miserable anymore. Exhausted, yes. Confused, constantly. But lonely? Not even close. She broke the silence by sniffing the air. Someone approaches. He frowned. Probably delivery. The doorbell rang. She tensed instantly. Challenge. Not everything's a fight, he said, opening the door. It was just his neighbor, an older woman holding cookies. I baked too much, she said, smiling kindly. Thought you and your girlfriend might like some. Laura appeared behind him, towering and radiant, and the neighbor froze mid-smile. Thank you, Laura purred. Your offering will not be forgotten. The poor woman fled, leaving the cookies behind. Mark shut the door and glared at her. You can't keep scaring my neighbors. They should respect the alpha female. This is a duplex, not a jungle. She rolled her eyes. Then your jungle is boring. He looked at the cookies, then at her. You ever tried chocolate? She sniffed one. Smells deceitful. Wait until you taste it. She bit into one, and her eyes widened. This is sorcery. That's sugar. Same thing, she said, already eating another. By the time she finished the batch, she looked almost peaceful, stretched out on his couch with crumbs on her claws. Humans, she murmured, you turn bitterness into sweetness. Even your food has metaphors. Helps us survive, he said quietly. Her gaze lingered on him, golden and soft. You think you are weak. But you adapt faster than any predator I've met. Thanks, he said, unsure if it was compliment or prophecy. She smirked. Perhaps the beast should learn from the human. Now that's character development, he said. She yawned, curling up again, her voice fading into a rumble. You amuse me, Mark of Earth. That is dangerous. He chuckled. Yeah, tell me about it. Outside, the city howled its usual song, sirens, traffic, chaos. Inside, a man and a beastwoman shared silence that wasn't empty anymore. Mark didn't know what tomorrow would bring, probably more broken furniture, but for once, he didn't dread it. He leaned back, closed his eyes, and thought, maybe being prey isn't so bad, if the predator has a sense of humor. You said. Morning sunlight leaked through the blinds, turning the apartment into a battlefield of warmth and clutter. Laura sat cross-legged on the floor, reading his utility bill upside down like it was a sacred prophecy. Your people worship paper, she said. You sacrifice currency to invisible deities named internet and electricity. That's called surviving modern civilization, Mark replied, pouring coffee with the resigned grace of a man who'd stopped questioning the absurd. We pay gods so they don't unplug our lives. Laura studied him, tail flicking thoughtfully. And yet you mock your own rituals. You laugh even as you serve. It's either laugh or scream, he said. Laughter's cheaper. She smiled faintly, though her eyes were distant. Something was off. For the first time since she crashed into his world, she wasn't prowling or teasing, she looked conflicted. My council contacted me, she said quietly. They have discovered your world's breach. I am to return. Mark froze mid-sip. Return? As in permanently. Her nod was slow. The contract must be reviewed. They fear contamination. He forced a weak grin. What, they think I'll make you soft? Perhaps, she murmured. They say humans spread emotion like disease. It clouds instinct. Weakens resolve. Guess we're contagious. She didn't laugh. For a creature built on dominance, she suddenly looked small, like an apex predator unsure of her own shadow. I have learned strange things here. Your species hides its strength behind apologies. You break and still reach for each other. It is unsettling. He leaned against the counter. That's our superpower. We mess up everything and still think love's worth the cleanup. Her gaze softened. You confuse me, Mark of Earth. I was sent to fulfill a wish, not question my nature. Maybe wishes are just excuses, he said quietly. We ask for what we think we want until the universe shows us what we actually need. Laura's claws clicked against the tile. If I leave, what will you need? He swallowed hard. Probably a new couch. And maybe, not to regret saying goodbye. A low growl rose from her throat, not anger, but something raw, tangled with emotion she couldn't name. Humans fear endings. In my world, endings are simply new hunts. Yeah, he said, but sometimes the best hunts are the ones that end too soon. Before she could answer, the air rippled. A portal tore open near the ceiling, pulsing with pale light. 3 figures stepped through, towering, horned, radiating authority. The council. Their voices echoed in harmony, Lura of the Feral Accord. Your mission concludes. Return for decontamination. Mark raised an eyebrow. Decontamination? I gave her coffee, not radiation. Silence, human, one of them boomed. You have tampered with sacred instinct. Lura stood tall again, her regal tone returning. He did not tamper. He taught. Humans are prey, another hissed. They exist to be observed, not learned from. Mark chuckled dryly. Funny. That's what my boss said before I quit. Laura stepped forward. He is not prey. He adapts faster than any predator I have known. He found humor in fear. He faced me without claws, without armor. That is strength. The council snarled. You are compromised. Mark's instinct told him to shut up. His mouth disagreed. Look, I know I'm not exactly a cosmic powerhouse, but maybe strength isn't about killing what scares you. Maybe it's about laughing with it until it stops being scary. They turned their gazes on him, unimpressed. You speak of weakness. I speak of survival, he said. You rule through fear. We survive by connection. You think emotion weakens us? It's the reason we haven't gone extinct from our own stupidity. For a heartbeat, even the portal's hum quieted. Lura's eyes widened, not with shock, but with pride. He speaks truth. The council looked between them. Your contract states, fulfillment of wish requires satisfaction of the summoner. Is your wish fulfilled, human? Mark hesitated. She looked at him, waiting for an answer that would decide both their fates. Yeah, he said finally. More than I expected. Less than I deserve. They didn't understand the nuance, but Lura did. A flicker of a smile touched her lips. The council, however, began their ritual of recall, the portal glowing brighter. Then the task is done. Wait, Mark said quickly. If the contract's about satisfaction, doesn't she have to decide too? I mean, she's half of this wish, right? The council faltered. One looked to the others, whispering. Lura's grin grew sharper. By his world's logic, she said, I, too, must be content. Are you? One demanded. She stepped closer to Mark. No, she said simply. Not yet. The portal shuddered, its light flickering. Then you defy your command. I choose to study longer, she said firmly. Emotional contamination must be examined thoroughly. Mark whispered, nice save. She smirked. Adaptation through mockery. I learned from the best. The council's glow dimmed, their authority unraveling under bureaucratic semantics. One muttered, the clause allows temporary extension, for research. They vanished as abruptly as they came, the portal closing behind them with a resigned hiss. Silence returned, broken only by the hum of the refrigerator. Mark exhaled. So, we won. She turned to him, amusement flickering. We delayed. Same thing in my book. Loa reached out, tracing a claw along the rim of his coffee mug. You realize this means you are now an active participant in interdimensional diplomacy. He shrugged. As long as it comes with health insurance. Her laughter rolled through the apartment, low and genuine. You are a ridiculous creature. Guilty as charged. She stepped closer, her eyes bright with something unspoken. I could return home now and claim victory. Or stay here and continue learning. About humanity. About you. He pretended to think. We're messy. Loud. Terrible at communication. Great at snacks. Snacks I understand, she said. Then you're halfway human already. Her tail curled around his wrist gently, the contact surprisingly soft. You taught me that weakness and warmth can share a skin. That laughter can be a weapon sharper than claws. Perhaps humans are not prey after all. And perhaps beast women aren't the scariest thing that's ever knocked on my door. Then you would open it again, she asked. He smiled. Every time. For a long moment, neither spoke. The morning light caught in her eyes, turning gold into something human. Then she broke the silence. Your wish is fulfilled, Mark of Earth. He considered, then shook his head. No. It's evolving. Her grin was all teeth and tenderness. Good. Evolution is my favorite kind of foreplay. He groaned. You're learning too well. She laughed, and the sound filled the room, blending with the city's heartbeat outside. Later, as she curled back onto his couch, claws tucked neatly under her chin, he whispered, You planning to stay long? Until the research is complete. And when will that be? She half opened one eye. When you stop wishing. Mark looked at her, then around his chaotic, half-broken apartment, the coffee stains, the claw marks, the faint echo of laughter where loneliness used to live. For the first time in years, he didn't want to fix a thing. Guess I'll keep wishing, then. Her purr deepened, vibrating through the floorboards. Then I'll keep studying. Mark sipped his coffee and looked straight ahead.